This week for our Friday video, we're going to tell you a little bit about annual conference. On June 19th and 20th, United Methodists from all over our area gathered together to do the business of our annual conference area. We include churches in Colorado, Utah, Wyoming, Montana, and one church in Idaho. This work can be sacred. It can be part of relationship. It can be the ways that we hear about ministry and mission from other churches across the plains and the mountains and throughout the wider area. And yet, this time was different. We gathered digitally. We all were on Zoom from our own homes, just like we're doing worship at our AUMC. And so we had to learn new practices and solve new problems this year. But it was still a chance to gather, learn some important things from our bishop and our leadership and our cabinet, and take stock of some of what's going on not only in the wider United Methodist Church, but across our own area. We had quite a few participants from our AUMC, and we're excited that there could be so many who were a part of this important work. I want to extend my thanks to all of you who sat through some very long days of Zoom meetings. And I hope that those of you who weren't participating have a chance to watch this video and hear a little bit from those who were able to participate, learn about what they learned, and know where we are within our connectional system.
Good morning. I'm Jenny Dunkelberger, and I was blessed to be a member of the folks that went to annual conference, and I got to do it right here at home. Having never been before, I had nothing to compare it with, but it was an awesome experience, and I highly recommend if you get the opportunity to do it. You learn so much. I felt like it was very intimate and very personal. You felt like the speakers were speaking directly to you. It was fun to catch up with different people in the conference that I know and haven't seen in a very long while. Pastors that I have had in the past and so on. And I thought that Bishop Karen was absolutely amazing. She led with excellence, and it was obvious how much she cares about all of us and our direction, and it was just a very good experience connecting with her and understanding where she is coming from. She's a great role model. She met every situation with a prayer, and it reminds us to do the same. I felt like I got a much greater insight into the budgeting process and how all of that works. That was very helpful. All in all, it was a good day, and although long, and the voting could become tedious at times, but it was well worthwhile, and I'm glad that I was a part of it. Hope you can too. Thank you.
Hello, AUMC. Sarah and I had the privilege of representing our church at the annual conference this past weekend. It was an interesting format, of course, because it was virtual, so we actually got to hang out on our sofas, hook up the tablet onto our TV, and we each had a puppy on our laps, so that was kind of fun. We also talked through a lot of the conference, so most of you would have been annoyed with us if we were with you, because we conversed about every vote and kind of chatted on the side. I'd say that the conference was a masterclass on Robert's rules. Very impressive. I took some notes on that. But I'd also say as a virtual conference, I think we all have to give some massive props to our bishop for managing a very difficult conference format beautifully. There were technical hiccups, as expected, but not really that many. And I think that the overall way that the conference was presented and some of the sessions or the extras that we got to watch, a little girl with true facts that she told us while we were waiting for votes to come in, or groups that sang and various recordings. It was all very enriching and a lot of fun, actually. As you can imagine, this year's conference had a special emphasis on social justice. And I know that the Black Lives Matter movement has been front and center for a lot of us. And Sarah and I have personally been honored to march with our neighborhood for this cause. And we've also been saddened and I think a little exasperated that we're all still living this as a country and we haven't progressed further. So I wanted to share with you the moment of this annual conference that I found incredibly meaningful and wanted to bring back to my church. It was during the laity session, and there was a portion that was devoted to multicultural advocacy. You can watch that laity session on Facebook and watch this portion. I'd say it was probably just over halfway through the session. But it was incredibly meaningful to me. There was a Japanese American United Methodist named Marge Tanawaki who spoke. And they had her on video, but she was also on a phone. And it wasn't just that, a lot of us do these videos and we actually use our phones for the audio to save bandwidth or just to have a backup in case the video goes down. Marge Tanawaki was sitting at this desk. The video was on her, but she was holding up a rotary phone, black rotary phone with one of those curly Q cords. And she spoke so calmly and quietly about her life in the World War II Japanese internment camp in Montana. And she talked about the history of these camps. And I was struck thinking, why don't I know more about this? So I looked it up, and I also, of course, reached out to my mom, who happens to be a retired history teacher. And, I asked her, FDR signed the executive order for these internment camps. How did this happen, and why didn't I learn more about this in school? And so my mom, framed it for me and gave me some of the background. Very, as everything is in this country when it concerns race, complicated, sad background. There was no recompense for all of these Japanese Americans who lost their homes and lost their livelihoods. Even though one of the most decorated units in the European theater, as my mom instructed me to go read about, was comprised of Japanese Americans. These were people who were fighting for our country, even as some of them were put in these camps across the United States that were effectively exactly what we were fighting against in other places. I found this stunning, and I was mostly taken with how calmly Marge was talking about this. And then there was another gentleman named Gil Asakawa, and he spoke to some of that calmness. He said, it is our traditional Asian value of not wanting to make waves. So as I was thinking about, why haven't I heard about this, and why isn't there more outrage about this? I think there is, but it's also cultural. And they need all of us to fight for these things. Gil also told a story about in 1880 in downtown Denver, there was a lynching of a Japanese American. He was hung. And there's actually a plaque across from Coors Field that commemorates this. These are things I walk through my life of admitted privilege, and I don't notice these things, and I don't necessarily get taught these things, and I don't know about them, and that makes me frustrated and exasperated. And so I wanted to share all that with you because I know this is at the top of a lot of our hearts right now. Racism still thrives in this country. We have so far to go, and we can't get there until we actually do know about these things and we can confront our own demons. And so I will just end by saying this was I think, a powerful presentation. I'd encourage you to go to Facebook and watch it. I found it very meaningful and was grateful to be a part of the annual conference and to get to see this presentation. I do look forward to the book study that AUMC is about to begin on the book called White Fragility. I plan to read the book and I'll participate as much as I can. Side note, as your finance chair, I will also say that I truly believe the conference is doing everything it can to manage their upcoming budget for FY21 responsibly and thoughtfully. There was a fair amount of discussion about all that, but I think there was broad consensus and also a commitment to make sure that we are spending apportionments to help things like Black colleges. So I would encourage you to watch what you can on Facebook. It was a privilege to be part of that annual conference and to participate, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to have represented. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Camille Parker, and I am your lay leader, and I was part of the delegation, if you will, to be part of the annual conference 2020. However, I went as a guest this year as opposed to being a delegate. And the difference in that was just that I wasn't able to vote for anything, which was interesting. But I was very, very happy to be part of the delegation because I was able to understand a little bit more every time I go to the annual conference. This is my second one. Every time I go, I learn more and more about the way our conference works, the way the United Methodist Church works as a legislative and affirming body of Christ. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate the opportunity to be part of the group that got to be at the conference. It was obviously via Zoom this year, which is very different than being live in a room with 800 people in Billings, Montana last year. But what I appreciated about it was you were able to focus a little bit more on the way that the petitions and amendments came through and nominations came through, and spend a little bit more time reading through the information and really kind of getting the gist of it and not being distracted by all of the people around you. Sort of like when being in Colorado where we get to vote by mail, you get a chance to sit at your kitchen table and go through all of the ballot measures and really take a look at it before you vote for things. It's a little bit like that. So, but anyway, the conference was very, very good. There was nothing striking about it in the fact that I didn't sense any great dissension on any of the amendments or any of the petitions that I saw. The majority of what I watched had to do with closing of churches, talking about just a variety of things about our camps that we have around the conference. And this year, one of the things that I thought was really fascinating and I really appreciated was there were a lot more sponsorships, it seemed, with it being on Zoom, where it was sponsored by, say, Church and Society or a variety of other groups that then would have a short video about their organization. But then in the interim, in between votes, we got a whole slew of wonderful videos of music and speaking to us about affirmation and about where we can be as a church, and some cute little kids running around telling what they thought about the world, and it was just, it reminded me how much of a community we are. And I just really want to stop with that, because we are community, we are the church, regardless of whether we're in a building or not, and we will always remain the Mountain Sky Conference. Thanks.
Thanks to our tremendous delegates and representatives of Arvada United Methodist Church who have shared their impressions about this year's annual conference. You know, annual conference for a lifelong Methodist is like a family reunion. It's an opportunity to gather and share stories and share grief over this past year, but also all the wonderful things that God is doing in our midst. And Like every family that's going to be gathering differently this summer, we did too. And yet, the story still got told, the mission still got shared, the inspiration for what God is doing among us was celebrated, and we heard each other's griefs. And it's a time when we gather, but also do the vital business of the work of the church to make sure that we are reaching out with the love of God and Jesus Christ in our Wesleyan tradition in Colorado and Utah, in Montana, in Wyoming, and Salmon, Idaho. We are a part of a big family, and if there's anything that annual conference reminds us of, it's that. We are never doing this ministry alone. Our mission is one where we are sent into a field of service with so many others with whom we join hands and hearts to offer the love of God, especially in these challenging times. Thank you for your support of your church all the time, and especially as we remember the joy of being a connectional community that not only spans the Mountain Sky Conference, but the entire world as the United Methodist Church.